Hi, this is Emily. Welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to review in detail and do some reads for you of my favorite parts from this absolutely enchanting, dazzling, spellbinding, bewitching, and sparkling book that I love tremendously. Midnight in Everwood by M.A. Kuzniar. Her real name is Maria. She has a new book coming out in September that is under the name Maria Kuzniar, which is promising to be very similar to this one. I think it's called, I'm not sure, I had to write it down. Unless they change the title, it's still in production, but Upon a Frosted Star, and it will be under the name Maria Kuzniar. She also has a book called Ship of Shadows, which is more for children. This one's more for adults, which I have ordered and have not read as well, so you might find her under either name. So, oh my gosh, I have so much to say about this book. First of all, look at this gorgeous spine. Looks really pretty on your shelf. I wish I had purchased the hardback version. When I first bought this, and I saw it recommended on Amazon because I had recently bought, and which I also will review and link below, a similar book, The Enchanted Sonata. It was a recommendation, and I picked it up and I read both books back to back. Very similar, and I'm in love with both books. I thought The Enchanted Sonata was going to be my absolute favorite, but this is equal, almost leaning toward my favorite, but I really can't decide. I love the writing and the descriptive detail in this book more, but I love the story in The Enchanted Sonata more than the story or plot in this one. But they're different in so many ways. This book I was a little skeptical of when I started. I also thought it was a children's novel, and I was wrong because it's really technically a fantasy romance, but the romance trope is very low level. It doesn't really kind of come to fruition until the end, so it's like you wouldn't really know it has that romance. There's some undertones of it. So first I'll talk about what it's about. I'm going to tell you a few goods and bads about this book, and I'm going to read some gorgeous descriptions. And what I love about this book the most is the absolute brilliant writing. There are not a lot of authors that I would use as examples for excellent, phenomenal, descriptive writing that can pull you into a scene in my college courses to English majors or for writing. I use Hans Christian Andersen a lot, and for the Snow Queen or the original Little Mermaid, because the descriptive details are brilliant, as well as Charles Dickens in The Christmas Carol. But I have to say that the descriptive details in this book, especially how it pertains to describing Everwood, I would use as examples in my college classes when teaching how to do descriptive writing for setting, because this book is edible. The descriptions in this book of the magical, enchanting Sweets land, for example, which is Everwood, is edible. Like, it makes you want to eat the book. That's how, like, if you like sweets like I do, that is how good the writing is. And it's what makes this book, it makes you overlook some of the plot, any plot foes, because of the writing. Now, I do want to say, I feel like, and I'll get to the plot in a minute, I feel like the author, let's call her Maria, started out writing, so this is a historical fantasy-ish romance that takes place in early 1900s Nottinghamshire in England. And I feel as if the writer attempted in her narrative, not when the characters are talking, but in her narrative, has she attempted to use a lot of big, unrecognizable words, even to someone who has 2 master's degrees, which is me, who's read hundreds and hundreds of books, words that I literally had to look up. I was like, what, is that a word? She used that a lot in the first few chapters, in the narrative parts. Now, trying to make it seem more like she's fitting it into the time period. However, that is more evident of a newer writer, more evident of a newer writer. It's one thing to use those words in the dialogue of the characters who are living in that time, how they may speak, but in narrative should be told in a plain, standard, modern day voice to what we're in. So for example, I made a list of all the words. This is I did want to say that the author stopped doing this. After the first few chapters, I didn't see this again. So I think someone must have corrected it, maybe an editor, but they forgot to go back and change these. So we have a couple of them I know, but I had to verify my definition. We have syrup, surreptitious, and it was like she decided to be surreptitious about it, which, and you look it up, it's to keep a secret. Then just say that in your writing, you know. We have salubrious, which means favorable to promoting health. This was all in the narrative, like the character was very salubrious about this, or it was out of place. It slowed the flow down dramatically. We had curlicuous, curlicues, an ornamental fancy curl or a twist. One of the girls' hair was curlicuous. We had ingratiated, to establish yourself in good favor of another is what that means. Diatribe, which is, I knew it. I've known what that is, but I don't use it. A diatribe is when you attack somebody critically. Periphery, macrodontia, which is a dental. I mean, there was more. I gave up after a while. I wrote these all on my iPad, but when you're in the narrative and you have a description of, you know, the characters doing XYZ, you don't use the giant words like that. I mean, this was not written in the 1900s, 1906 or whatever. It is written modern day. So if you want to use those words, it would make sense to have the characters saying them in dialogue. And a couple of them were, but most of them were in narrative. So anyway, that's my biggest complaint. So this book was published in 2022. It is amazing. So it's about a girl. Her name is Marietta. This is a parallel retelling of the Nutcracker. Now, do not mistake this for a Christmas book. There is very little Christmas in this book. The only mention of Christmas, as I can recall, was the first chapter or two starts out on Christmas Eve, as is typical of the story of the Nutcracker. But there's not a lot of Christmas going on. There's a mention of the time period to establish the time period in the book. But this book is about a girl, and unlike in the regular Nutcracker or in the Enchanted Sonata, as Clara, who is a teen girl, maybe 13, 15 in the original play or in the Enchanted Sonata, in this book, Marietta takes the place of Clara. And she's 20 to almost 21, I believe, and unmarried in this Victorian, England. So the book starts off on Christmas Eve, whatnot, and there's dialogue and things going on, some preparations for a holiday, but really it's all about her mother and strict father, and who are trying to arrange a marriage for her because she's like a spinster now, because she should have been married a long time ago. I remember bed. And she wants to dance. She wants to be a professional dancer. She's a ballet. There's beautiful descriptions in here of ballet and dances that are amazingly done. Whereas in the Enchanted Sonata, the trope in there is all about Clara and music. And here it's all about ballet and dancing. So anyway, she wants to be free, have freedom, get to choose who she marries. It doesn't want to get married at all. She wants to dance and be a professional dancer. And no, she has to marry. There's an eligible bachelor that moves in next door. His name is Drosselmeyer. He's a kind of a genius, an inventor, a rich bachelor. He's invited to dinner, Christmas Eve. I believe it's Christmas Eve, or there's the night before Christmas Eve. I don't remember. But either way, there's something, he's still this charming, the most eligible bachelor for this time period. Of course, she sees something dark about him, is uncomfortable with him. She escapes from that dinner and goes into their big ballroom and just practicing her dancing. He comes in, some non-nice things occur, and it builds up to he's kind of a magician. He makes an enchanted clock that he tries to make some inappropriate moves on her, and she escapes by hiding in that clock, and that clock takes her into this other world like a portal. So I have to think that the author of this book likes Outlander, the Outlander series, which I love, the movie series. I'm sorry, the TV Showtime series particularly. There are some parallels to Outlander, like the portal that you can go through to other times and lands. Especially I saw it at the ending, the very, very ending, when the soldier she meets there takes her back to the portal to send her back to her place, and they, you know, I don't want to give that away, but so like there's a little Outlander parallel to that, but otherwise, she ends up in this other world called Everwood, and gets trapped there, and it's this amazing, beautiful, enchanting, bewitching, magical, dazzling, sparkling, snowy, like if you imagine the original Nutcracker as the land of the sweets, you know, when she goes there in the dream, Clara, like that. Now, really, Everwood in this book is the first place you come to when you enter that world, but then from there, it's almost like there's different exits into neighboring kingdoms, and there's a beautiful like sugar castle there that seems enchanting and alluring and evocative, but really there's a really, really bad king there where he actually ends up capturing her and she gets taken there. But there are several neighboring kingdoms or other worlds that you can exit Everwood through, like doors, through other portals. So go to different worlds, and you know, she's in Everwood, she's exploring, she's lost. Before she gets taken, she can't find her way back, but she learns when she gets taken that there are other, you know, girls that are captive, sort of, that are from other worlds. One was a princess or a queen, one was a witch or something like that. And so the rest of the plot is all about her lack of freedom, her entrapment in this sugar castle, and she and the other two girls, one I think is a fairy, actually, one was a princess who's meant to be queen, them trying to escape. And there's no Nutcracker in here other than a toy Nutcracker there's one mention of a glimpse of a Nutcracker gift, but there's a soldier that works for the king who, you know, the king and most of his guys are bad, but this soldier is not, and he befriends her and tries to help her. And of course, there's undertones of falling in love, but it's very minimal until the very end, when it's like all of a sudden it's like, you know. So but the descriptions of her going through Everwood, of getting to the castle, and once she's in the castle, trapped there, there's all these balls, right? There's, oh my god, I wrote them down. These are my favorite parts of the book, and this is what I'm going to read you some to show you this gorgeous writing, and I wrote it down on my notes of all my favorite parts. So yeah, there's the there's the buttercream ball, right? There is the buttercream ball, there's the ice ball, there is the grand confectioner's ball, all these elaborate balls where it's all decked out in the most amazing, like if you could have your dream Christmas holiday winter fantasy party, if you're a fan like I am of the holidays and winter and all things magical, it'd be like your dream come true. But I want to read a few glimpses of this beautiful writing about what it looks like when she gets to Everwood. So a path presented itself, pastel pink and lilac cobblestones. Mariana followed it into the town. As she passed the chalets, she discovered they weren't wooden after all, but frozen gingerbread. Icicles clustered along the slanted eaves. Other little dwellings were circular with the striped red and white of candy canes. She paused and grazed a wandering hand over the cobblestones, smiling with delight when she smelled marzipan. The path soon widened, pouring into the central circular market. Here the air was sugar, sweet and soft, like inhaling a wisp of a soft cloud. Small gingerbread huts perched on the marzipan cobblestones, with ice roofs and windows through which wondrous items and confectionaries were being sold. Marietta wandered by, her heart full of that childlike wonder that leads young ones to await Father Christmas's sleigh, with stockings filled with sweets and toys by that nocturnal visitor garbed in green. She wished she had never lost her belief in magic, never set it aside when she was older, and it was no longer charming for her to still hold such beliefs. Perhaps she might have trusted her instincts. Here she saw molten chocolate and peppermint balls, another pale pink sugar candy mice that squeaked when you tasted them, another working gingerbread train with chocolate and candy cane tracks. And then there was the hutch that whispered of grandeur shades of magic, the ones which sold keys in an assortment of shapes and sizes for entry into the world of your choice. Silver sleigh bells promised to ring the instant someone fell in love with you in Everwood. Snow globes that reveal the viewer's heart's dreams like a window cut into their souls. Love it so much. I love this book. Let's see. Her walk slowed as she absorbed the scenes around her. Pillowy rolls baked in the shape of snowmen, the aroma reminiscent of bakeries she had patronized in Paris. Patronized in Paris? Snowflakes fashioned into jewelry, velvet mittens scented with vanilla, a vat of popcorn emitting caramelized steam as the seller shoveled it into twists of paper. A large star, grander than all, so nothing but small glass vials of shimmering blue-green for whatever purpose. Signs advertising them as melting enchantments. Miniature reindeer cavorted about, fluffy with stubby legs and antlers, strung with tiny golden bells that jangled sweetly. Staring up at the unrecognizable stars, Marietta noticed they were brighter and more numerous than the constellations on Earth. The realization struck her of how small she really is in this world. Okay, so then, love it. I get so excited about this book. Here is Sugar Alley when she turns down this alley. Marietta took care to keep from sight as she twined past a glass wall of a mountain and entered a narrow alley. It was a maze constructed from sugar between a pair of ice cliffs that teetered up to brush the stars, strutted with alcoves and delicate sugar stairs. Signs heralded all manner of sumptuous delicacies crafted within. Marietta's heart beat faster as she took it all in, illuminated by strings of tiny ice lanterns above, chocolate truffles imbued with the finest liqueur that promised euphoria with a single bite, petit fours laced with beautifying charms, caramel buttercream, birds granted with flight. This was Sugar Alley. I just love it. I love it. And then we get into, like, when she first gets in the castle, she first sees the throne room. The throne room sparkled like the inside of a champagne flute. Gold and black were the reigning colors. Tiny golden bowls had been fixed round the frost packers' necks, initiating them into the color scheme as they meandered about with ice, filling the streams and fountains with more ice. The igloos have been replaced with bubbles suspended on thin golden chains, large enough for a couple to steal away into. Shimmering icing had been poured on top of them, rendering them private. Marietta danced her 1,000-layer Renaissance gown. On and on. This is one of the first times she entered the grand ballroom. Here's the buttercream ball. First came the buttercream ball, where the patissiers whipped up rows of petite fours, topped with extravagant swirls of buttercream and vanilla, chocolate, praline, pistachio, and glossy frostberry. All the guests were a frothy tulle in gauze sheets and suits that might have been almost piped on, and some were, in buttery pastels and creamy concoctions. The night rippled in scents of torn between sugar and vanilla and the darkest of chocolates. It was the occasion on which Marietta had presumed to set her sights on the captain for the first time. Then there was the ice ball. The ice ball, when the entirety of the throne room had been coated in a sheet of ice and skating took place instead of dancing. Great sculptures of the king commissioned by himself had been hung from frozen blocks. Means for trees lined with edges as if the forest had strolled into the throne room for the night, ice and frosted. Some guests had resembled woodland sprites clotted in peppermint green gowns with jeweled antlers crowning their locks. Other guests had taken on the personage of frost fairies, draped in glistening whites, sheers, silvers, and glacier blues. They had partaken in crushed ice. There's a typo. I typed in. They had partaken in consuming crushed ice in little igloo bowls. And then there was Marietta's favorite ball, the one where truffles and pralines gently floated down. This is the Grand Confectioner's Ball. Truffles and pralines gently floated down the core of the palace like a snow, catching out of the air to be bitten into, chocolate on the tongue of all revelers, turning kisses even sweeter and darker. The one where Marietta had one of the most beguiling dresses, yet a simple white satin dress spooled into a gown fit for a fairy tale princess sparkling like a fresh snowflake. When she danced around, her dress lit up with an incandescent glow. The one where she turned to find the captain. Actually, I think that was the gingerbread. That might have been the gingerbread ball. That was, yeah, there was also gingerbread ball. There was like 4 or 5 balls, big old balls. Tiny lights dotted the floor as one was dancing in starlight around a melting chocolate molten current that ran through like a river. Guests were served empty glasses and cups of crunchy shards of praline, biscotti, plump frost berries to drizzle with the molten core chocolate at the center. Small working gingerbread trains ran alongside it on peppermint tracks, darting faster when someone chased one, craving a nibble, with little islands of marzipan floating down. So, oh my gosh, this book, it is, this is probably one of my favorite books I've read in a very long time. I am a sucker for beautiful descriptive writing because I think that's what makes great books. Anyone can tell a story, but not everyone can write that story and bring you into that world to live the story. And so I feel like when I read this book, I'm watching this in a movie, and I wish it was a movie because I would love to see how they would pull that off. But like I could feel like I was there, like tasting everything and seeing everything and the smells, and like it's just like every woman's or girl's dream Christmas fairy tale fantasy, or even winter. I feel like it had more of a winter theme, but there are undertones of Christmas. It wasn't like Christmas, the word, the holiday wasn't mentioned really, other than the very first chapter when it was Christmas Eve. But the things you see, like at all these balls in this winter magical place of Everwood, really, really strikes up those, Christmas themes. And so I absolutely love it. At the core, it comes down to good versus evil, which is typical. World building is spectacular. It's not a very long book. I mean, it's only this size. Nottingham, 1906. Marietta longs to be a ballerina, but as Christmas draws near, her dancing days are numbered as she must marry and take her place in society in the new year. But a mysterious new neighbor, toy maker Dr. Drosselmeyer, heralds the arrival of magic and wonder in Marietta's life. So, love it. So we have, she's imprisoned. The king turns her into a marionette where he controls her and makes her dance when she's too tired to dance. He captures her and keeps her for her entertainment. He's a very, very evil guy. So, and then we have these girls breaking free. There is, trigger warning, abuse scene. One of the other captive girls, I think it's Perlapita, which is, she's a princess. She's a captive there. She covers for Marietta, and you can, the king takes her in the back and you hear her screaming, and she's beating him. He's beating her, and she comes out all bloody and, whatever. So that does happen. And I have to say, I was surprised to heck, considering that the romance tones in this are very subtle. You can tell she and that Captain Legat, are falling for each other, but he's really loyal to the king, and he would get slaughtered if the king found out he was helping his prisoner. But at the very end, of course, he has to be rescue the damsel in distress kind of a scenario, even though really Marietta rescues herself, which is a very strong, independent female trope in this book, and for her to reestablish her freedom. But he is there, and of course, and there is right before the very end, we finally have like a kiss, and apparently a quick sex scene, which is like 1 paragraph, which I did not expect that. Like, it was literally literally this much left of the book. I was like right back here. It's just like, what? It's like that came out of nowhere right before he sends her through a portal. So it's like, like the very Outlander-ish. If you've seen the first season of Outlander, where Jamie takes her to go back through the stones and they have sex on the ground, and then she thinks she's never going to see him again, and she's gone. That's why I think there's some Outlander influence in here. But anyway, so I guess this reads as adult fantasy. I'd probably say it's more women's fantasy, because it's a strong female character story. It's the beautiful listening fairy tale descriptiveness, and I will definitely be using this book for more modern day fiction to show my students how to do world building and descriptive writing. So I was very happy to talk about this book. Please check out my video of the Enchanted Sonata, which is another retelling of the Nutcracker, very different, and I will read some passages from that as well. Thanks for watching. Please share this video, and I will see you again.